How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to the GSMC Chip Shot Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Sports Network. I'm your host, Manny Maradiege. Today is Tuesday, August 6th. Another round of stories to come on today's show around the NFL. A lot surrounding Brandon Aiyuk here in the first segment. A wave of new information and reports have hit us recently, just from yesterday, so we're going to get into all of that to start the show. Then also in the second segment, staying in the NFC, talking some more about the Detroit Lions and whether or not these two specific players can surpass the other teams in terms of weapons. Can these two players be the game changers that the Lions need in order to become the biggest threat to the Kansas City Chiefs? We're going to talk about that, and also some joint practices starting this week, some fights breaking out. Could joint practices be an alternate option to preseason games? I'm going to talk more about that once we get to that segment, and also some more topics that we have in store on today's show. But before I get started, a reminder to you guys, if you have any questions or comments you'd like to make on today's episode, to please use the tip and donations link, GSMCPodcast.net. By using that tip and donations link, I'm able to see your question, acknowledge it, read it out loud, and get your guys' thoughts on anything I say or on any of the topics on today's show. It's a big help for this show, obviously, and also the network on hand. So if you guys would, please use the tip and donations link, GSMCPodcast.net, with whatever question or comment you'd like to say throughout the duration of this episode. But now we can jump right into this whole Brandon Aiyuk situation that has just sort of hit us randomly out of nowhere just to start off the week yesterday on Monday. Initially, what I wanted to talk about was how there was some inclination about the 49ers maybe considering a trade. But yesterday, everything broke down, and now the 49ers, it seems like, are turning the page and are really focusing on trading Brandon Aiyuk, or at least are more open now to do it more than ever. In the recent day, just from yesterday, we had a lot of reports from NBC, and just from now that I'm still seeing it on my phone from NFL Network, and guys like Ian Rappaport, Mike Garafolo, all bringing up a lot of different scenarios. That we're going to start off with what I saw initially, which was from NBC, from the 49ers insider, Matt Mayoko, who first said on this entire topic, as you guys can see on your screen, with what sort of kicked off everything with Brandon Aiyuk and the 49ers. He said, "What's changed is that Aiyuk and San Francisco have taken longer than expected to finalize a deal after the sides nearly had an agreement months ago. And the most important part of it all," he said, "it appears more likely than ever that the 49ers are willing to make a trade. It might be up to Aiyuk to determine the next move." And then following that report, you saw yesterday how now the 49ers have a trade framework currently with the Cleveland Browns and the New England Patriots. Those seem to be the front runners, at least to start off the day, right? Those seem to be the guys that have the most in play, the most to give up to the 49ers and meet their asking price, not only for Brandon Aiyuk, for them to willingly give him up, but also for them to have enough cap space to be able to give Brandon Aiyuk the contract that he is after. And we could pretty much speculate that it is close to $30 million per year. And the Patriots have the most cap space in the league, so that makes sense. I'm sure they'd be willing to give up some draft picks because they are in that stage right now where, the roster talent maybe isn't where you'd like it to be. It could increase significantly if you have Brandon Aiyuk on your roster and help out Drake May tremendously as well. And then you look at the Cleveland Browns, another team that made the playoffs last year. They're in a way different spot than the Patriots are. Obviously, at this point, they have a lot of Pro Bowlers, all pros on their team already. And for them to add a guy like Aiyuk, maybe give up an Amari Cooper or something like that it has been rumored, you would probably take that deal and think that's a good trade-off. And now you have a younger number one wide receiver to pair up with Jerry Jeudy and hopefully get you over the playoff hump that you stumbled over last year. And according to further reports from Matt Mayoko and also NBC, the 49ers asking price is something around that range, right? A couple first-round draft picks or maybe just high-end draft picks and a veteran wide receiver or just a player of significant interest for the 49ers on the other side going towards San Francisco in order to get something done with Brandon Aiyuk, because now obviously this has all come to a point where I think the 49ers have finally realized that, it is the players' willingness to want to sign there, and Brandon Aiyuk has been pretty stubborn and pretty dead set on trying to get the value that he feels that he deserves and that he has played up to over the last few seasons. And whether or not the 49ers think that's fair or not, they might have their asking price, and Aiyuk definitely has a different opinion to what the 49ers are willing to give up. But with that being the case, I think now, with nothing really moving on, Kyle Shanahan repeating the same answer, the same updates over and over again at training camp, now it comes to a point where you can't have this just be a consistent thing over and over and over again and having to deal with the media attention hovering over you, waiting for something like this, to be resolved. And now I think it's the right decision to finally at least see some progress, whether the 49ers agree with it or not, to try and at least resolve this situation, because really the 49ers, their biggest goal obviously is to win a Super Bowl. They're up until a point where now the Super Bowl is really the only thing that matters, similarly to the Cowboys almost in terms of regular season success and postseason success. With the 49ers, they've been at the top for so many years now, and they made the Super Bowl already twice in the last few years. They just need to win it now. It's coming to a point where you're thinking, what's it going to take? Of course, you're playing the Chiefs, you're playing Patrick Mahomes, so that's very unfortunate, but you were so close last year to kind of have it slip through your hands. Now that's really the main goal, the only thing that matters really, and I think this 49ers team, if you want to bring up the Super Bowl window and that topic and things like that, that is, I don't want to say it's closing like other people might mention, but it's certainly coming to a point where now you're overdue on trying to find the successes that a group like this certainly needs to have had already at this point. And they've been close, like I said. The 49ers need it as an overall roster with how talented they are. Kyle Shanahan definitely deserves it as a head coach of the 49ers, losing the last two previous Super Bowls he's in, but also going back to the Atlanta Falcons days, obviously, in that Super Bowl as well. He probably more than anybody needs this Super Bowl win, and if you're going to have this distraction just stand in the way of that, I think it might be hard to move on from Aiyuk, and you could argue that that could hurt their Super Bowl chances if that's all that they need and that's all that they're, really striving for now. Getting rid of Aiyuk doesn't really scream that you're making yourself a better contender for the Super Bowl, right? But again, I think now you're stuck between a rock and a hard place, and you have to resolve this issue in some way, shape, or form, and this seems to be like the most reasonable way of doing that. And if you can get somebody back, like I mentioned before, the Browns could potentially offer Amari Cooper. He's pretty much at the height of his career, ability-wise, skill set-wise, and everything like that. To fit him in to the 49ers offense, I don't think would be very hard. It would just add to the plethora of talent they already have. So if you can get someone like that back, it would be pretty ideal for the 49ers to do so. Same thing with the Patriots. They were another front runner. Kendrick Bourne was rumored in those talks to be heading back to San Francisco, so he's already familiar with that system a little bit. Wouldn't be the worst option in the world, especially, again, with just how talented they are anyway. And what's even crazier now, to throw another, a sharp left turn into this whole situation, is that before the Browns, or just at the start of today, the Browns and the Patriots were the two main front runners, and the report said that the Commanders and the Steelers were also potential suitors, but they were pretty much out of it. But now, as the day has gone on today, reports from Mike Garafolo, Ian Rappaport, and then Adam Schefter as well have re-included the Steelers in those talks. They've said that the Steelers have re-engaged the 49ers in discussions over Brandon Aiyuk and figuring out a trade there. So it seems like everything is just being thrown out all at once with this situation. You almost don't really know what to believe. And if the Steelers are, back into the negotiations to potentially be a suitor for Aiyuk, I saw just recently that Mike Garafolo tweeted out or reported on NFL Network that the Steelers could, funny enough, be the preferred destination of all three teams. So how does that impact, what the 49ers are able to negotiate with the Steelers? Does the fact that Aiyuk want to go to the Steelers, completely cross off the Browns and the Patriots, even though they might have better offers for the 49ers? It's a unique situation because Brandon Aiyuk really holds a lot of the power. If something was to get done and these two sides were to split, Aiyuk holds a lot of power because he would only go to the team that is offering him the contract that he is after. So if he wants to go to the Steelers, he might be willing to take a little bit less and say that he wants to accept that contract offer over the Browns and the Patriots, even though they're offering better packages for the 49ers. So there's a lot of intricate details that go into this. A lot has to do with Brandon Aiyuk, and a lot has to do with what teams are willing to give up. And if something does happen, I'll be super interested to see, which side sort of caved in a little bit more, whether it was Aiyuk giving into the 49ers' best interest or the 49ers just wanting to get rid of this situation and cave a little to Brandon Aiyuk's request of going to whatever team he may end up on. But it's certainly something to keep an eye on, something that I'm starting to feel like it could be resolved this week. I hope that it does. I'm just waiting for this to finally be over to see where the landscape lies after something like this happens. And what's the entire, joker, the entire caveat of this entire thing is that the 49ers could just not end up trading him. After all this news sort of rushes in, the 49ers could just decide to, backtrack and say, you know what, we're not trading him. I don't like these offers. Nothing's really working out in our best interest. We're going to reevaluate this next offseason or something like that. That could still happen. So everything is pretty much on the table, but now we're getting a huge influx of other information. The 49ers now willing to at least listen to trade offers, and it seems to be coming down to the Browns, the Patriots, and the Steelers. So we'll monitor that as we go out throughout the week. Hopefully this gets resolved at some point this week so we can talk about it. Maybe some news breaks today. That would be exciting. But with that being said, we're going to leave that topic there. I'm definitely not the last time we're going to touch on it. But with that being the case, we're going to head to the first break. And when we return, we're going to stay in the NFC and talk about another contending team in this conference, that being the Detroit Lions, how a breakout season from Jahmyr Gibbs and Jameson Williams could potentially put them at the top of the list for the contending teams that could dethrone the Kansas City Chiefs, in my opinion, in 2024. Their roster is very well built. They're very well now experienced after last year. I believe if Jameson Williams and Jahmyr Gibbs can have the seasons that they're hyped up to be, this Lions team could seriously be a contender to the Kansas City Chiefs. I'll get more into that when we return after this short break.